It is time for another award-winning mailbag edition of Seahawks Today. Tyler Jones, your fearless leader, here with you. Appreciate you joining us. Coming up on today's show, we will answer your questions. This comes from our live shows that we do each and every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Subscribe to the channel now so you never miss on these mailbags. Turn on notifications so you don't miss a moment, and we'll go ahead and get started right away with a super chat from Elijah, as you can super chat to get on the mailbag or use the hashtag Seahawks as we go along here. Elijah with a $5 super chat. What do you think about picking a top cornerback with the number 5 pick to make the Seahawks a top 3 pass rushing defense? I really like Eli Ricks. So Jeremy Chuggs and I were talking about this earlier. Eli Ricks, probably not a first-round talent, but as far as that number 5 selection goes, think about this, okay? Top corners in this draft, you got Joey Porter Jr., Christian Gonzalez. Those guys are not projected, at least right now anyway, things could change, to be top 10 picks. If you want to use a pick on a corner, then in the first round, then that 20 pick would be for that. Top 5 as of now is a reach when it comes to the cornerback position. This draft is very deep at corner, but early on to go that route that early just doesn't really add up right now at this point in time. Corner is a need for Seattle for sure. Tariq Woolen was awesome this past year. I think Kobe Bryant is well on his way, but you need a little bit more. But that's not what you need to take care of at 5 as far as I'm concerned. Thanks for the question there, Elijah. Anthony with a $2 super chat. If we don't sign Geno, what other quarterback options do we have? Let's break this down across the entire board here, okay? Let's start out with players that are on the free agent / trade market of sorts. Derek Carr just got released. You also have Jimmy G, who's going to be a free agent. Baker Mayfield is going to be a free agent. Packers could be trading Aaron Rodgers potentially. So those are the guys that are kind of the veterans of the bunch that are available right now. And then you look at internally, you have Drew Lock is an option. And then when you look at the draft, there's 4 guys that separate themselves among the rest. Bryce Young, Will Levis, C.J. Stroud, and then Anthony Richardson. I don't think that the Seahawks are going to let Geno Smith walk out of that building without a Seahawks uniform. If they have to, I think they'll franchise tag him. I don't see any way, as of right now, Geno Smith is not your starting quarterback week 1 next year for your Seattle Seahawks. I think Geno's going to be back next year, and if for whatever reason it doesn't work out, then I think they would turn towards the draft before they'd go for a veteran. More QB talk. Got to take quarterback. Geno is a stopgap. Levis or Stroud. You know, I really like what Geno did this past year, and I think Geno can play to that level again this upcoming season. And you're not necessarily wrong about him being a stopgap, but this is what I would say to that, is that you look at the needs this year for this Seahawks team, they are bigger than what the quarterback position is, okay? Look at next year's quarterbacks, and you got guys like Caleb Williams, Drake May, Quinn Ewers. There's better quarterbacks next year, and so I think you can hold off on that quarterback thing till next season potentially. If there's a guy you fall in love with, then I understand. But it's not something you have to do, is spend an early round pick on a quarterback. So I disagree on that take, but I respect it. Taker 610. Thanks for the $2 super chat. Adam writes, any chance the Seahawks could sign Derek Carr, maybe as a backup? So Derek Carr is going to enter free agency, and the teams that have looked at him obviously had the visit with the New Orleans Saints. The Carolina Panthers have been talked about, the Washington Commanders, the New York Jets, and all of those teams are talking about Derek Carr being a starter. Geno Smith was a lot better than Derek Carr was this past season. And he costs probably a lot less than what Derek Carr is going to command somewhere. I think Derek Carr is going to be a starter somewhere in the National Football League next year. Just not with the Seattle Seahawks. So, and not to mention, I'm not a very big Derek Carr fan either. That's a whole other topic. Don't get me started on that. But to me, I just don't see that adding up for Seattle. I don't see him coming to Seattle. What say you? Should the Seahawks sign Derek Carr. This is our pinned comment today. You might get an ad break. If so, take advantage of it. Get your votes in. S for sign, P for pass. What do you think about the idea of bringing Derek Carr to Seattle? Anthony writes with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Anthony, for that. Hashtag Seahawks. Where can we pick up Isaiah Foskey? That would be the kid from Notre Dame that's in the draft. And I've seen some different stuff on Foskey. It sounds like he's a day 2, day 3, somewhere in that range as far as that goes. And you look at what the Seahawks need, Foskey could be a potential fit for the Seahawks team. He's somebody to watch for sure as far as that goes. So he would certainly be on their radar. Not a day 1 guy, but somewhere in that day 2, day 3 range. Elijah with another $5 super chat. With our last pick in the second, if Anthony Richardson is still there, do we pick him up? I think that's what you meant to write, Elijah. No. I am out on Anthony Richardson. I think he is by far the worst quarterback in this upcoming draft. He is a project, and he didn't impress me at all at Florida this past year. I am not interested in bringing in Anthony Richardson whatsoever. To me, it's going to be a long time before he's ready, if he's ever ready to play at this level in the National Football League. Not a very good passer. He's just not that accurate at this point. To me, there's a lot of flaws in his game. And, you know, with the way that there's such a demand for quarterbacks, he might not even be there at 20. So the Seahawks have other issues that they need to take care of. Anthony Richardson is not a guy I'm a fan of either. So I'll pass on Anthony Richardson. Elijah. Tyson. Best run-stopping grades in this draft. That's a very good question here. Let's go over these for you. Talking about defensive tackle at the run-stopper spots. Obviously, you start with Jalen Carter, right? I mean, that's where this draft arguably begins with, is Jalen Carter. And if he somehow is available to you at 5, maybe even consider trading up for him potentially. Jalen Carter is far and away that dude. He is that guy. Then there's Brian Breesy, and he is all over the place. We've seen him as high as top 5 on some projections, and then there's others that have him going the end of the first round. Kind of all over the place potentially with him. Ika from Baylor is another one that fascinates me. He was a mauler in the Big 12 Conference and really created some problems for teams to deal with. And then after that, that's when you start to see things drop off. I like Cansey from Pittsburgh. He's a guy that could, when it comes to the combine and all that, might sneak his way into the first round potentially. He might have a late run at it. Dexter's another guy, too, from Florida. But it's Jalen Carter, and then it's kind of everybody else at that point. Updates on Geno Smith's contract situation. As of this recording, we are still playing the waiting game. But I'll say this much. When you hear the tone of things, and I think it's very important to kind of read into the tone, what people are saying, right? It seems like there's a positive feeling about things right now. And you don't get that in Baltimore, for example, with Lamar Jackson. It seems kind of hostile. The way things went in Las Vegas with Derek Carr, that was not friendly in that situation. So based on what we've heard, just even though they don't have a deal done at this point, it does seem like that both sides are going to figure this out. It's a marriage that they want to happen, that they want to get a deal done. So to me, that's my biggest takeaway, is that everything sounds good. I don't think it's a deal beyond 2 or 3 years, but we'll see. How many years should the Seahawks sign Geno Smith for? It's going to happen, but how long should it happen? Let us know in the comment section. Let me know how many years should the Seahawks sign Geno Smith for on this new deal when it comes this way. Jarhead wants to know, how far would you trade back from 5 if we really hate how the board falls? I think the most important key is getting a first-round pick next year. I think that would be the thing. Here's what you do. Think about this, okay? So you trade back okay, and you still have that pick, let's say 5 becomes the 9th pick or the 10th pick. But then you pick up a first-round pick next year, then all of a sudden you're feeling pretty good. To me, that's the key is if you're going to trade back at that 5 pick, you have to get a pick next year as well and keep on building this thing and drag out that draft capital, and then you head into next year with 2 first-round picks. I mean, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Next year's quarterbacks are a lot better. Eventually, you do have to take care of the quarterback situation long term. Doesn't have to be this year, but you could prolong that to next year when there's better quarterback options. So, for me, that's what I'm looking at. At 5, if you're going to trade down, it's got to be in position to get something next year. That's the key, personally. I'd like to stay in the top 10. If you can stay in the top 10 and get a pick next year, I think you're cooking with bacon grease. What do we do at slot corner? Well, first off, let's break this down here. Let's start off with Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was your nickelback this year. I think he moves into the CB2 role where Mike Jackson is. Mike Jackson's going to be a free agent. If Mike Jackson wants to come back, I think you're signing up Mike Jackson to play the nickelback spot. Shout out to one of the worst bands of all time. I think that's what you're asking Mike Jackson to do if he comes back is to play nickelback. But what another thing you look at is we've talked about the need for corner in this draft, right? If you could find somebody in this draft that's ready to play that nickelback spot, like you found Kobe Bryant last year, then that's a really good position. Also, there's Trey Brown is also a possibility as well. Although we didn't see much from Trey Brown last year, the last time that we saw him consistently on the football field, he was solid as well. So you have a few different layers to figure out, but I think I trust management that they're going to put themselves in a good spot and everything will be okay. What's the Seahawks' biggest need this offseason? What is it? I think it's finding some help in that front 7, pass rushers and run stoppers. What say you? Tell me in the comment section below. Hashtag Seahawks. Can't you see how you can't take Bijan at 20 if he is there? I think he means can take Bijan. You can't pass up on Bijan. I think that's what he's trying to say. Look, I like Bijan Robinson a lot. He's the best running back prospect I think I've seen since Saquon Barkley. But you already have Kenneth Walker, who is fantastic. And Bijan Robinson, usually you don't like to take running backs in the first round, but he's kind of the exception there. I'm okay with other teams looking at Bijan for the first round, but Seattle, I just don't see that working. I think that you pass on that opportunity, bring in Bijan, you focus on other positions. Maybe that'll come back to bite me years down the road when they check the tape on this, but where the Seahawks are at and where their needs are, to me, that just doesn't add up to go Bijan there at 20. Last question from Matthew, sexy with a bit of gangsta, says, NFL fans must demand a better officiating from the NFL. Too many postseason bad calls or no calls, etc. It's really blank officiating. This is a billion-dollar industry. We need better NFL refs. Matthew, I agree. NFL officiating, I know Roger Goodell a couple days ago said that he feels like officiating's never been better, but, that's just total BS from Goodell. I thought officiating in the Super Bowl was fine. I think they got the right call in the holding penalty there at the end of the game. To me, they got that right. But Carl Cheffers and others have been a disappointment. Think about this. All the best refs are now doing TV. Gene Steratore, Terry McCauley, Dean Blandino. Mike Pereira, I know, was working in management. It's been a long time since he's actually been out in the football field. But with that said, I think that, yes, you need better officials, and here's what you do to solve this. I'm going to make this real quick. The way that you solve officiating is you need refs to be full-time employees. You got guys like Clay Martin, okay? And I think Clay's one of the better officials in this league. Clay, you know what his day job is? He's a principal and a high school basketball coach. How should any official have that amount of time to be able to be a high school basketball coach and a principal? Not a knock on Clay, don't get me wrong, but that just shouldn't be the case. He should be a full-time employee of the league. That should be his job. That's the issue at hand. Make the officials full-time where that is their job fully and nothing else. Follow me on Twitter at Tyler Jones Live. I have more complaints about officiating, and it's not about that Super Bowl. That was fine, that penalty, as far as I'm concerned. I'll see you next time. Appreciate you joining us. Have a great weekend.